What's going on, everyone? So earlier we got from Brett Siegel that the Lakers reached out to two teams about two separate players. First was the Minnesota Timberwolves for Donte DiVincenzo. That got shot down immediately. And then the Lakers reached out to the Memphis Grizzlies about potentially acquiring KCP. And it looks like those trades went nowhere because it was when he was originally traded there. Now, it doesn't mean that the Lakers aren't negotiating or trying to figure out what's going on with KCP. I would love to bring KCP back. I know he had his struggles last year. I know he wasn't great on the Orlando Magic, but I think a lot of that was fit. His best seasons were with the Lakers. Like, people forget, like, KCP wasn't the KCP we know today until he got to the Lakers. And then LeBron came, and then AD, and then they went on the championship run, and he just continued to develop, and then ended up going with Nikola Jokic, right? So he had the most success when he had a playmaker that can draw the attention and get him quality looks. So, of course, when he goes to a team like Orlando that doesn't really have that to the scale of a Jokic or a LeBron or a Luka or something like that, he's going to have his struggles because he has to create a little bit more for himself than he's accustomed to. Still, defensively, fantastic. It's just the offensive side of things, which I think he would get right back into the swing of things, slot alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic. He would be ideal, slotted in alongside a Luka at the 2. I mean, you got Marcus Smart now. Now you start to put together the type of roster that can compete with anybody. If the Lakers could land KCP, I would be all over that if you can. Problem is, a couple things, right? So, one, would Memphis actually trade KCP to the Lakers? Now, the reason I even want to talk about this is because I do still think KCP to the Lakers is possible, but not directly from Memphis. And I'll explain why, right? Because Memphis, I don't know if they really going to want to help and upgrade the Lakers, right? Maybe to get off of his salary, right? Maybe to kind of clear his salary off the books. That is something that I think could be a possibility, right? He's owed $21.6 million this year, and then he has a player option the following year for $21.6 million, which he's probably going to opt into because he's probably not going to get more than that on the open market. He'd be 33 years old, right? So you could kind of approach Memphis and be like, hey, get off of him. We'll give you the salary dump, the salary need. You know, you throw in an asset, you know, a second round pick, a couple pick swaps, something like that. Now you get KCP. I'm not giving up a KCP or a first for KCP at this stage of his career, coming off of a bad season, right? I think he'll get back to being the normal KCP, but you don't know, right? So I'm not giving up a first for KCP on the contract that he's on. Orlando overpaid for KCP. That's why he went to Orlando, right? So I'm not going to take on the bad contract. Now, for the Lakers, it makes sense because his contract would expire in 2027, so it fits that timeline that the Lakers are looking for as far as, like, you know, the salary clearing opportunity that KCP would present in 2027. Okay, perfect. So it makes sense for the Lakers to take. We're helping you clear off salary. That's a clean slate. I just don't know if Memphis would be looking for that in particular. But that is where Boston, I think, comes in and where you might be able to get KCP from. So there are reports that Boston and Memphis are working on a potential trade to land Anfernee Simons in Memphis while KCP would go to Boston. Now, would whatever assets and things mix with that, if I'm I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, Lakers getting involved either as a independent trade with Boston or in the mix of a 3-team trade. So where Memphis ends up landing Anfernee Simons, right? The Lakers send whatever out to a team like Boston, and then the Lakers land KCP. The only thing that would prevent that is if Boston really just wants KCP, right? If Boston's like, hey, we're looking for KCP. But Boston's trying to tank for the bottom. I mean, they basically blew up the roster. I mean, you look at that roster, it's kind of, you would imagine it's probably not going to be pretty good, right? Jaylen Brown's still good. Still got Derek White. Still got a couple pieces, but it kind of seems like they're packing it in next year. And then when Jason Tatum comes back, they'll kind of retool, revamp that thing. So expect them to kind of make some strides and some moves in the offseason, right? Well, are they looking at KCP and going like, okay, we're going to have Derek White, KCP, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and then whatever center? Possibly. Or are they looking at it as we can get assets for Anfernee Simons, get KCP that we can now trade again now or later and get more whatever, right? And that's where I think the Lakers come in. Because it's like if you go to Boston and you're like, because Memphis, are they going to want to help the Lakers, a team that's, in the conference that they're trying to compete against? Boston doesn't care. Boston just wants to accumulate assets and free up cap space and all that. You've seen them do the salary dump trades for guys. You've seen them trade guys for pennies on the dollar. So if they're getting the assets for Fernay Simons, right, the Lakers can now come in, approach that, get to Boston, and then maybe they can do the trade for a second round pick or something and be like, hey, we'll help you unload salary. We'll give you, whatever, a Gabe Vincent that you might be able to flip for a second at the trade deadline or something like that to a veteran team that needs a point guard, right? And then, we'll give you a Maxi Kleber that gives you kind of that floor spacing big to kind of give you some of the action that you got, that you lost in losing KCP, right? Or, Kristaps Porzingis, I guess KP, not KCP, but maybe you could pull something like that off to where it's like you're kind of doing this move with Boston. Maybe you can even throw in like a connect and maybe get somebody back, right, and try to clear some salary. I don't know, right? You can get creative beyond that, but if Memphis isn't willing to just trade KCP to us, and especially at a fair, reasonable price, maybe Boston will because of the situation that Boston is in. Right? And I know people are like, Boston isn't going to help the Lakers, but Lakers and Boston will make trades again. Boston's in a very specific scenario. Right? Like, if they're trying to contend and win for a championship this year, it might be very different. But this year, they're trying to clear salary. They're trying to accumulate assets. They're trying to get prepared to make a big swing and a big push next offseason when Jason Tatum comes back so they can try to get back into contention, right? So they're kind of clearing the deck, clearing the board, and trying to get and accumulate whatever they can. So I don't think KCP at 32 years old, next year will be 33 years old. I don't necessarily think that that's the guy that they're like, oh, hey, this is what we're betting on. And again, you probably want to get younger. You probably want to kind of get some more athleticism if you're Boston, where the Lakers, they need a guy like KCP, right? So I think you might be able to find this mutually beneficial trade where Memphis gets what they want, Boston gets and accumulates assets, plus get some other guys that are expiring contracts, so stay, clean sheets, and then also can maybe flip one of those guys for assets at the trade deadline, and then the Lakers get a guy in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That, I think, is potentially the most realistic path to landing KCP. Now, it is possible that Boston and Memphis end up falling out and that trade doesn't work out, and then maybe they just want to get off KCP, they want to get off his salary. Maybe that's something you can do. Again, it boils down to what is the asking price for a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope with Memphis. I think it would be cheaper with Boston than it would be with Memphis because, again, I don't think Boston is in a very different situation, a very different circumstance, and Lakers aren't in the conference. All right, so it's not like, oh, well, we trade KCP to the Lakers and now we got to worry about the Lakers, in the playoffs next year. It's like, no, the only way we'd have to worry about them is that they make the NBA Finals. And so I think that is something that could maybe be beneficial. But if Memphis is willing to trade KCP, then you go get KCP. I like the idea of KCP. Little hefty price tag. I don't really like his contract. But again, it's why you'd probably be able to get him. Right? Because he is a little overpaid, new CBA, but he's the exact type of player that this Lakers team needs. The exact type of guy that if he can get back to being that all NBA defensive player on top of being, a 40% three-point shooter, which, again, he'd be sought alongside Luka and LeBron James, where I think that raises the ceiling from. Now I think you're in that conversation. Now you have a Marcus Smart and a KCP that you can slot in either alongside Luka Doncic, but also even slot in too. You can put KCP at the 3 and Marcus Smart at the 2 at times and kind of have that defensive versatility out there, that switchability, but also shooting and offensive production. So really like that idea. But just to go into his production, right? Because like I said, he had his struggles. He's 32. He'll be 33 in February, so around the trade deadline, or actually after the trade deadline. But he is a guy that plays, and that's the key. You look at the last few seasons. He's played 77 games, 76 games, 76 games, 77 games. The last time he played less than 70 games was the final season with the Lakers before he was traded to Washington, but he still played 67 games, right? The fewest games he has ever played in a season is 67 games, and it was that year with the Lakers, right? So again, a guy, the best ability is availability. Well, KCP is a guy that is usually available, and that's important. But last year, 29.6 minutes per game, 7.1 field goal attempts per game, shot 43.9%, so basically 44% from the field, shot 34.2% from three-point range on 4.3 attempts. His last handful of seasons was 41, 42.3, 40%, 41%, 38.5%. The last time he shot 34 to 35% was the 2018-2019 season, in which he shot 34.7% on 5.3 attempts. So again, is that a decline, or is that just he was on a team that doesn't have the playmaking to put him in a position to have the success shooting the basketball? I think that's what it is. Again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. We won't know unless he ends up being on the Lakers. But I think he could get back to being that 40% guy, as you saw with Denver. 2-point range on 2.8 attempts, 58.9%. So basically, 59%, almost 60%, 54.3% EFG. Free throw shooting, 86.3%. Grabbed 2.2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 steals, half a block, and 9 points per game. Again, still had the defense last year, was still able to be that defensive versatile player. It's just the shooting was his struggling, and which he shot just under 35%. I think it'll be fine. Bring him in if you can. I think the best path is Boston. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.